Welcome to the NRT Now podcast, giving you the latest in Christian music news, topics, and artist interviews directly from the largest Christian music site online, newreleasetoday.com. Now, here's your host, Jake.
Hey, welcome back to episode 6. Thank you guys so much for being on this journey with us here. And today we have a special co-host. We got Caitlin, our news editorial. What else do you do, Caitlin? Everything?
Yeah, a little bit of everything. Kind of whatever needs to be done at the moment. News editor is my official title, so press releases and all kinds of news and album reviews and some editorial content and interviews, a little bit of photography now, just anything.
Sweet. So we'll have to definitely link to your photography Instagram. I've seen a couple of good photos on there.
Yeah.
Okay, more than a couple.
Starting to use it there.
Yeah. Cool. So being the news editor, what are some of the biggest news pieces that have come out pretty recently here?
Well, for starters, the flaming Katy Perry lawsuit, obviously, which we'll talk about soon. There's been a few big fall releases. So Zach Williams, I'm blanking on a bunch of them right now, but there's some really major releases coming out this fall. A bunch of Skillet news. Skillet's always a big deal when they show up in our news stories. So, of course, the new album that just dropped, tour, anything Skillet related, people are always excited to learn about.
Cool. And I think Disciple is another big one that has an album coming out.
Yep, definitely.
They told me in the interview. Go ahead.
The Bowen Hammett news was a lot of people were talking about former Sanctus Real lead singer Matt Hammett's son had major heart surgery a few weeks ago, and we wrote up a story on that, and just a lot of people have rallied around him on social media, artists and fans, and that's just been really cool to see as well. Yeah,
and if I remember right, he's had a heart problem ever since he was born, and that's been a consistent theme through Matt Hammett.
Right.
And Bowen's, I want to say 6 or 7 years old, maybe older.
I think he's 8, but yeah, somewhere right around in there.
And I know the whole CCM community has come around him. I know Citizen Way, Ben Calhoun was able to go up and spend some time with him. There's a lot of artists, kind of a family that all were able to be there to support Bowen and Matt and the whole Hammett family.
Yep. Yeah.
So you're talking about the Katy Perry and the Flame lawsuit that just got decided a couple weeks ago, somewhere in that general vicinity. Let's talk a little bit more about that if you want to give the background on that.
Yeah. So the lawsuit was actually filed back in 2014. So it's been a bit of an ongoing process. So the lawsuit was Flame was suing Katy Perry for copyright for her song Dark Horse that he said was taken from his song Joyful Noise. And so the lawsuit was filed back in 2014, and now finally, 5 years later, they decided that they were going to rule in favor of Flame, and just this massive payout that Katy Perry's going to have to come up with between her and her label, and just a really big deal for the entire music community, but I think especially for Christian music, because I don't remember specifically another incident quite this big of a deal, especially one that's been decided in favor of the artist. I think the really cool thing there is, the songs definitely are very, very similar if you listen to them, but just that Flame is such, he's a big name, but it kind of in perspective with Katy Perry, Katy is just this big, huge superstar, and you would think that, when those two would go to court, almost that it would just be handed to Katy because she's such a bigger name, but it was a major win for Flame that they found in his favor, even though he's, on a smaller scale from Katy Perry.
Well, I've got them queued up here, so we have a little bit of a, I would say visual, but that's the wrong medium. So we have a kind of a frame of reference. So we'll start with Flame's Joyful Noise here.
You know what it is.
So this is the line that is in question. This is the melody that's in question here. So that was Flame's Joyful Noise. And let's flip over to Katy Perry's Dark Horse, the instrumental from that side here. So they're definitely very similar.
Yeah. And there's things like pitch and BPM that are different, but I mean, if you're listening to it and you're not really thinking about the super technical details of it, it definitely sounds quite similar.
Yep, very much so. And KJ52 put out a podcast or vodcast episode about the whole topic, and so I definitely recommend going and looking at that. Listening to KJ about his take and just what can be copyrighted and what can't be, and what's eligible for a lawsuit.
Right.
But I think the biggest thing that he said in the whole match, in the whole episode, was that it really doesn't matter what we think. We can discuss it till we're blue in the face on social media or wherever. But it's ultimately what the courts come down to. What the judge's opinion is, and then what the musicologists have presented to the courts.
Yeah, definitely. And people definitely have been offering their opinion on it. I've seen a ton of my musician friends on my Facebook feed. The first 2 or 3 days after the courts had decided was just filled with a ton of artist friends and musicians that were offering their opinions on it. And some people obviously think it was the right decision, and then some other people think it was similar but not similar enough to justify the lawsuit. So it's interesting to hear the different opinions, but definitely at the end of the day, it's already been decided.
So I guess kind of one of the first questions that I wanted to ask and kind of kick around with you is it fair to have this be, a Christian versus mainstream kind of argument and kind of a David Goliath versus battle? Or do you feel that this is more of a, artist versus artist kind of a situation?
It's one of those things that I can see both sides of the story on. I don't know, when it comes down to deciding was it truly copyright or not, I think that we need to just put it into perspective of here's 2 artists, and besides Christian or mainstream or anything like that, like these are 2 songs, and are these 2 songs, regardless of what genre they are, regardless of what the message is, the song itself, was it truly copyrighted? Is the payout justified? All of that stuff. But again, I do think I think people have made it into kind of the David and Goliath situation where a bunch of people had the argument that Katy probably had never even heard the song because Flame is such a smaller artist, and then some people say that Katy Perry used to be a Christian artist when she was just starting out, so maybe she still listens to some of it, and people have definitely brought that up into the conversation that because he is such a smaller artist, that it probably was the case that she had never even heard the song. It's one of those things where I can see both sides of the story for sure, but I think at the end of the day, regardless of what the genre was or the message or anything, it just has to come down to, was the song copyrighted and was it justified for the payout, regardless of whether it's Christian or mainstream or anything like that. These are 2 artists that obviously have both worked very hard on their music and don't deserve to be copyrighted by other artists, regardless of the genre. It's something that they have put effort into, and something that they deserve to not have copyrighted. So,
and I think I'm in the same boat. I think, at the heart of it, it's artist versus artist kind of copyright claim. And
yeah,
the whole David versus Goliath, Christian versus mainstream has been a narrative that's been placed over it. I'm not sure, who started that, kind of that whole narrative, but, just as
right.
kind of, I don't know, kind of an unnecessary layer of drama that it, I think a lot of times Christian music gets pegged as the younger brother of music. Mainstream's big brother, Christian music's little brother, and so
absolutely,
now it's kind of little brother want to fight kind of thing, and I think that's kind of unfair in this situation. Like I said, whether or not the opinion of the similarity of the songs or anything, I think that's an unnecessary label, unnecessary narrative that was been placed on this one here.
Yeah, and also I think media just in general tends to want to look at the drama side of things, and if there's a perspective that they can take to flare up some drama, most media is going to do that. And I think Christians a lot of the time get that side of, we don't necessarily get known for the good things, but the bad things are always in the media. I feel that way sometimes about not just music, but a lot of Christianity and faith. But I think I've seen a lot of people make comments about he was just trying to sue her so it could be, Christian music versus mainstream, and he just wanted to make a name for himself or a name for Christian music, or almost like he was trying to prove a point, or just things that I've seen people say that I think at the end of the day, it has to be about artists and artist versus artist, and copyright and the actual details of the song, and was it actually copyrighted and justified and all that stuff, and not made into a matter of mainstream versus Christian, because like you said, that's a lot of unnecessary drama that I think the media really likes to flare up, but I don't think it was the case here, where it was intended to start this mainstream versus Christian war by any means.
No, and when that comes up, kind of my natural response, and I mean, this is just 100% me, but it's almost like, is that a good look for Christian music? In an industry that's trying to not be the big brother and, trying to have an identity of little brother, but have an identity of its own, you kind of start thinking, like, is that a good look? Is that not, but like when you kind of strip that off, like I said, at the end of the day, I think that's what needs to be presented, whether it be from the Christian music industry or, like I said, the mainstream media or anything like that, is that, these are two artists talking about their copyrighted material, where they come from or what spot they're living in is irrelevant.
Absolutely. I agree.
And so the other thing that I want to talk about, you put out an article just a few days ago in the recent past here, in response to a lot of stuff that's kind of going on in the industry, as the Christian media, I should say, revolving around Christian music. And I'd like to just kind of hear your heart and kind of hear where that came from, and just talk a little bit more about the article here.
Yeah. So there was this interaction. I won't get into names and details because it's not worth calling anybody out. But there was an interaction on social media a week or so ago where this well-known media site was kind of bashing this other artist for an album that they had put out, and just it was in the form of an album review, and then it took on social media and tweets and just some really unnecessary conversations and ways that things were being said. And we, as a staff at NRT, had talked about it, and I just realized that I was super passionate about the topic and that it had really bothered me how things had been handled. And I just started talking about it, and it turned into an editorial that night. And basically the idea behind it is, the editorial piece is called "It All Matters: How to Respond When Someone's Favorite Song Isn't Yours." And I think this definitely isn't an isolated event. It's been, it's just this continual conversation, maybe even in churches with worship styles and radio stations, and just anywhere that there's music, there's going to be, somebody's opinion. Somebody's going to like this and somebody's going to like that. And we're wired to enjoy different styles of music. Not everybody enjoys the same thing, and that's totally okay. My favorite song doesn't have to be your favorite song. Your favorite doesn't have to be my favorite. Like, everybody's allowed to like something different. But the problem comes in when we start saying that a song or an artist or whatever it may be doesn't matter just because we don't like it. And that was kind of the idea of the article. Was I just asked people to think about their favorite band and then think about how much that band means to them. And I used the illustration that, for me, my favorite artist is Jeremy Camp, and because he has a song that really impacted my life almost a decade ago, in a season of my life where I just really needed that song. And there are people that don't necessarily like Jeremy Camp, and that song really doesn't mean anything to, and that's okay. It doesn't have to be their favorite for it to mean something. And I use the example that Skillet is not my favorite band. I'm not a huge rock fan, but there are a lot of people, some dear friends of mine, that have been really deeply impacted by Skillet and their ministry, and that matters for them. And it doesn't have to be my favorite for it to matter. That we are all allowed to enjoy different styles, and that just because we don't necessarily love that song, we don't have to take to social media and tear it down. And especially if somebody else is talking about how much they like a song or an album, that it's not our place to go in and just tear it down and talk about how much we don't like it or why it's a bad song or whatever. But that different artists will reach audiences with their music that another artist won't, and that's perfectly okay. Like, that's the beauty of the Christian music industry and the music industry as a whole, that there are so many different options and so many different styles and sounds, and we get to pick what we like, and somebody else gets to pick what they like, and it doesn't have to be our favorite for it to matter to somebody else. Right when the whole social media thing happened, I said to somebody else that I always think, when I hear a song that maybe is not my favorite on the radio or whatever, I think, just because this isn't my favorite song doesn't mean that it doesn't matter to somebody else. And I always try to have the perspective that if I'm listening to something that necessarily isn't my favorite, I still try to think, this may be the song that means something to somebody else. Like that Jeremy Camp song meant something to me. And that all music matters, and that all music that glorifies God is being used for a purpose, whether we like it or not. And just at the end of the day, music and in general, to respect other people's opinions and to try to speak life and speak encouragement and speak respectfully, even if we don't maybe share their same opinion on, that's the best band or that's the greatest song. But just to kind of get outside our own little view and our own opinion and see other people and respect other people's opinions. And it goes for music, but it also goes for a lot of other things in the world. And I think if we had that opinion and we took that perspective to just our relationships and conversations with people every day, music or not, that it would be a game changer.
So I guess, it kind of begs the question, is there room for, professional criticism in, Christian music and, the media and relating to Christian music?
Right. I think definitely. I think that's part of what we at NRT get to do, is offer our opinions. And there's plenty of media sites out there who this is their job to offer an opinion. And I think that's absolutely valid. And it's helpful for people to maybe have an album review to go to when they want to think, am I going to spend 30 minutes listening to this album, or do I want to read this review and, have my, get a taste of it from that, and not waste time listening to this album if I'm not going to like it. I think there's definitely a place for critique and professional opinion, but I think the conversation as a whole is more of what's your attitude towards those things. Like, are you going at it with a gracious attitude? Because you don't have to like something. You don't have to. I'm trying to think of how I want to say this.
There's a way that, and I think you and I are on the same page. There's a place where there's some space there where you can, critique and be constructive,
right,
but still be positive and affirming as well. You may not like the music.
You can, right.
Yeah.
You cannot like something, but still be kind and gracious about it.
Yeah.
And if you're going into it with an attitude of just tearing it down and attacking the artist and whatever, that's not helping anybody. But if you go at it with an attitude of, this isn't personally what I like, but you choose to still be kind and gracious about the way that you present that critique, then I think there's absolutely a place for that. It's just the attitude that you go at it with.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's space to, talk about, production quality.
Absolutely.
Or, to speak to, the particular topic. I think there's a way that you can say it's generic and it's following the same script without being attacking, right, and cynical as well.
Right. And I think of even things like the Billboard chart. Like, there's a reason that Lauren Daigle's album has been at the top of the charts for just a massive number of weeks, because it's a really good album. And a bunch of critics and professionals have gotten together and decided that it's a really great album that deserves to be at the top of the charts for, this many weeks in a row. And I think there's definitely something to the fact of celebrating really good music when it comes along, and speaking about, how this album really hit home, and maybe this other album, there were some places that we thought it could have been greater. And I think there's nothing wrong with that, as long as it's done in the attitude of kindness and not trying to tear anybody down. And then from the side of a listener and a fan, that we just learn to have respect for other people's opinions and their favorite bands, even if they're not. I think the main takeaway from the whole article was that we should never say that something doesn't matter just because it doesn't matter to us. That we need to have this perspective of that there are other people in the world, and this may not be my favorite thing, but it matters to somebody else, and that's enough to make it matter.
And, at the end of the day, we're talking about somebody's ministry, and it's not just
right,
music. It's not just, album sales. I mean, we're talking about a ministry. And
absolutely,
I think there's room to say, where it can be better, where it needs a little more attention, or, it just wasn't our gig. But,
absolutely,
like I said, we're still taking the mentality of this is a ministry, not just a product.
Yeah. And when I sit down to write an album review, regardless of whether I love it or if it's just not my style, the thing that I try to think about is this is somebody's passion. Like, this is the product of somebody putting hours and hours and hours of blood, sweat, and tears and money and passion and just their heart in these songs. And even if it's not something that really hits home with me, before I write a single word, I want to have the mindset of, this is not just music that I'm writing about. This is like somebody's heart and somebody's giftings and somebody's talent. And how do I talk about this in a way that's respectful to them as an artist, as a songwriter, as somebody who is sharing these sometimes very vulnerable things with the world. Like, I never want to take that lightly, that this is somebody's passion. Especially, I'm a songwriter myself, and I understand that when you put, songs out into the world, it's sometimes a very vulnerable, very scary process. And I always think, how would I want somebody to respond to me if I was sharing my song with them? Even if it wasn't their favorite thing, how could they respond to me and still be kind and gracious and make me feel like it mattered, even if it wasn't, the thing that they're going to have on repeat for the next 10 years. And I think about that when I'm sharing with somebody else about an artist or an album, and especially when I'm doing a review, that even if it's not, hitting home with me directly, I still want to be kind and respectful about it, because it's somebody's passion and somebody's worked really, really hard on that, and that in itself deserves to be celebrated.
It was funny. So our guest on this episode is Unspoken. I'm not sure the right phrasing for that. Is it is or are, because there's multiple of them? We'll just. I'm not sure.
We'll say is Unspoken. There you go.
There you
is
go.
Unspoken. There you go.
So I was talking with them, and Chad's daughter was, part of the interview, as you'll hear in just a minute. And, we're talking about favorite songs, and, Eiffel 65's Blue came up, is one of her favorites. And I really wish that would have died a unceremonious death in the 90s, but, for whatever reason, it's coming back with fervor, and I'm not sure how to handle this. But, I was giving her a little bit of grief about, loving the song and all that. And after the episode, as I was kind of packing up and we were talking a little bit more, Chad was talking about, how sometimes, songs are just not other people, different people just don't connect to different songs. Some people just don't like it. And, that's okay. Right. It's just a preference thing.
Yeah.
So, some songs that we like, other people don't like, and, that's just A-okay. So,
yeah, everybody is made to be different and unique, and to have their own opinions and their own likes and dislikes, and that's what makes the world go around. Like, if we all loved the same thing, then it would be a really boring world. Everything would sound the same and look the same. And I think the point is that the things that make us unique are the things that make us better people, because we all get to have our own opinion, and we all get to offer that opinion. And I think at the end of the day, as long as we know that we can respect somebody's opinion without also agreeing with it, that's something that would be a game changer, not just on the music front, but in a lot of ways.
And it was absolutely adorable. We were talking about that, and, Chad said that, it's okay that other people, have different preferences, and, she was just like, oh, okay, cool. And that was all there was to it.
Yeah. It's so simple.
Yep. So, well, awesome. Well, we're talking about the Unspoken Interview and all that. So, let's go ahead and get into the interview, and let's take a listen. So we're here with the guys from Unspoken. I'll let you guys introduce yourselves so we get your voice.
What's up? I'm Chad. I sing.
I'm John. I play the bass.
I'm Ariel. I play drums.
And we have some in the background. We also have a special guest.
Yep, my daughter. And who are you? Romy. And what's your main stardom role?
Oh, the music video Reason.
Yep, she's famous.
So we got a video star in here as well. We got music and we got video. We got it covered.
Absolutely.
So my first question is when are you guys coming out with any new music?
Well, we just released a record after a year and a half of writing on June 21st. So I think we do have some plans in the near future to probably do a deluxe edition. So we'll probably add 4 songs, something like that. But normally we take several month break from writing, and, just to let our wives start to like us again and, all of gain some more ideas and live a little more life and all that good stuff.
Well, I was trying to be a little smart aleck, but it's awesome to hear that. But so that's awesome that you have the deluxe edition coming out. So, like I said, you just had Reason come out a month ago. Mm-hmm. I was listening to it on the way over here, which is awesome. So, I have my own theories on what kind of the theme of the album is, but I'd like to hear from you guys what you guys feel the heart of the album is, what the theme of the album is.
John?
Me? Oh, I don't. You've got such an eloquent answer for this. I would love to hear your thoughts on this, Chad.
Oh man, you're putting us on the spot here.
But it will be nice to hear his perspective because you got a good, that we write this album for the reason that you guys wrote it for. But it will be interesting to hear what do you think.
Yeah, I'll probably steal some of your ideas. I think the main thing on this is that we wrote songs for us and our families. That's really, every song really is something that we've talked through, walked through, or, thought through in the walls of our own homes. And so I think that's why these songs are so special to us. I would say that, I don't know. Let me think about that some more, but... yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, it did feel different than like the last two records. I feel like the last two records, we would come in and we would have an idea, maybe a title or something to write about. And this time I feel like we came in and, yes, we'd have that to fall back on, but a lot of it was just, what are we going through? What's going on at home? What's God speaking to us right now? And a lot of these songs just came out of the conversation in the room of the life that we were living or whatever God was speaking to us at the time, rather than, oh, this is a great idea, let's write about it.
And a lot of times you never get the theme of the record until it's over, It's not like you set, back in the day, Jason Mraz came out with a record. I can't remember which one it was, but a lot of the songs, were tied to the title in some way. Now, it just so happens that actually did happen on our record as well, but unintentionally, with that underlying truth that, he loves you, he's with you, he's for you. And, that kind of being the underlying message of all of the songs, and that love is the reason that we take the next breath and step and all that good stuff. So it's kind of neat to see thematically how each record comes about, because it's always unintentional, but the Spirit of God is usually doing something.
Well, I guess that opens in. My theory is this is around storming Area 51 and what we're actually going to find in Area 51. That was kind of what I took away from.
Interesting.
Exactly.
No, I think kind of what I heard. I was hearing a lot of what you were saying, Chad, was just more a theme of coming back to just rooting in Jesus. So you have like the reason. Love is the reason. Just leaning on God, just to me, it was more of a centering around Jesus, not, scriptural thematic, but just kind of that recentering. That's what I took out of the album. That
I would say that's extremely accurate because, even through all of this, as a family, we really had to get back to basics to what we believe and why we believe it. And, through some different struggles and, hard roads and stuff like that. So I would agree that that's probably accurate.
So I wasn't too far off the second guess. I like it.
Yeah. You lost me in the Area 51, but I'm not that smart, so.
That's the thing right now. Everybody's going to Area 51 trying to find something or other. I'm not sure which.
Have they stormed it yet? Has that happened yet?
I don't think so.
Okay. Don't do it. That's a bad idea.
I'm guessing it's not going to end well. So I'm seeing, I'm sorry, you're probably going to look at me funny for this, but I'm seeing a little bit of gray. And I see a little bit of gray in the promotional albums and stuff. So I'm
that was supposed to be edited out.
Oh, man. Someone in the Photoshop department didn't do their job.
It's touch of gray.
Yeah.
It's all good, man. It's all good.
So where I'm leading with this is not to be too much of a jerk, but what was Unspoken before it was Unspoken? Where were you guys at before you started the band? Kind of what's the story of Unspoken?
I was dealing with drug addiction and the whole drug culture, and went on a missions trip to the Dominican Republic, kind of on a whim and kind of by God's leading. And it's kind of neat to see that God's even leading us and guiding us even when we're way off the path and way far away from him. And so met our original guitar player in the Dominican, who's a Dominican guy, and he moved back to Maine with me, and we started traveling around. And then John graduated from college, and we offered him a deal he couldn't refuse at $30 a week.
Good pay for a musician. Yeah.
With a bachelor's degree.
Yep.
And while on the road, we met Ariel and have met some other wonderful people, and some of them have come and gone, but the core of the group here has been together well over a decade.
Awesome. And so you saying he pulled you out of college for a high-paying job on the road.
Yeah, well, we actually grew up together in my dad's church in Maine, but we never hung out because I was like known as the goody two-shoes, and he was known as the Antichrist, kind of. But it's funny how God brings our paths around, and we're both just as much in need of the gospel and the grace of God, despite our actions or whatever. But and then Ariel was
Just pop. Just it happens that the first gig that Chad did with the guy who started the band with, it was in Nashville. It was a town competition, and I was there with my former band, and this was back in 2002, 3. And so that's how we met. Probably a year later, a year and a half later, something like that. My lead singer passed away, and in March, and then in October, Chad called me asking for if I can allow them to use my drum set. Of course, I say no.
Chad will ask for anything, by the way, from anyone.
I'm just following what Jesus said.
And but I allow them to take a couple parts, and then he asked me why you don't help me out or help us out, and that's been 14 years in October.
Wow.
All I know is that the couple parts didn't really help us. We had a kick drum pedal,
Here's a drum
cymbal
key.
stand. We I guess we made it work, but thanks for nothing.
He asked me for a drum set. He said, "Dude,
Never loaned to strangers. Is that what I'm catching here?
I don't care if you're my brother. You can take that drum set. You do."
So I seem to remember a little bit of that story. What was the band that you were in beforehand?
Crowned. It's a kind of a hard rock band.
Gotcha. So, I guess that wasn't the band that I was thinking of. Storyside B, that's the one that I was thinking of.
Oh,
That's Jordan from the Afters.
Oh, wow. I guess I didn't make that
The
connection.
drummer from the Afters now
he's a good friend.
was I think the guitar player in that band.
Well, and I think one of their other lead singer, or I think it was a bass player or guitarist, went on The Voice actually and made some noise in The Voice as well. So I remember that story. I thought that was it. So, so you guys started in 2012. Your first single.
22. Oh yeah.
Sorry, your first single was out in 2012 through, I think it was Centricity still.
Yep.
And so, what was that journey between when you guys formed in 2002, 2003 to 2012, and going the label and where you're at now?
Man, just a lot of gigs, a lot of love offerings with no love in the offering, a lot of shows that not necessarily many people showed up to, but I think God was teaching us something about faithfulness and really refining why the reason why we do what we do, and so I count it a blessing. I wish it came a little sooner. But it was a blessing to be able to kind of just get out there and play 80 or 100 gigs a year and meet people and pray for people and share the gospel with people. And our music wasn't very good then, but in 2000
It was good for us.
9, yeah. In 2010, it was 2010. No, 2009 or 10. We moved to Nashville and we just started writing songs 3 days a week because we didn't have a job and didn't have any gigs because we had kind of uprooted from the Northeast and moved down, so we didn't have any contacts. And so we started writing songs, and wrote about 100 songs for that first album and chose 10. It's pretty good.
10%.
10%, yeah. And, it's just been fun. It's been fun to see the doors that God's opened. And, of course, we always wish that, like I said, they opened quicker and wider. But we're here to serve the Lord. So whatever he chooses to do with it, we try to accept that with a grateful heart. But it was fun to get out and hear our songs on the radio, and little by little we cut our other jobs back and different things like that. So it's been fun to see that the songs that have meant something to us have connected with people, and then radio stations all over the country and the world have given us the opportunity and trusted us with being a part of what they're doing. And so just a huge impact. So you just completely went from indie. And remember, back then we were printing out, directions from MapQuest. You make one wrong turn and you're screwed. Whereas now we live in it's very different to be an indie group now with all of the, tech things that we have access to. And so, we just kind of grinded. Kind of.
Either works, I think.
Yeah, we just kind of grinded and hit the road,
Awesome. So that kind of actually gives me a couple of questions. So what you're talking about other jobs. So what was the worst side job that you guys have had trying to make this all work?
John and I are contractors, so, we did all sorts of different things. What was the worst thing we did, though?
Was it maybe jackhammering cracks in concrete floors and filling them with epoxy?
That was pretty bad.
That was bad.
Trying to think of, there's got to be one that was just terrible. Ariel, architect, so he had a real job the whole time. It was nice for his wife, I'm sure. But he was gone a lot too, worked full time and then played 80 shows a year. And the rest of us, worked kind of seasonally and as things came up, so.
So so the other question that came out of that was, what's the kind of the toughest lesson that you've learned from, starting out and just being on the road, in to where you guys are at now?
That is not easy. It's a lot of commitment, and in the beginning, it's hard work. You're pursuing something, but you have to work too, so your family can eat. So that puts you in a big dilemma sometimes. So I'm done doing this for the right reason. Why I'm doing this for? If it is worth going forward. But I guess when there's a call and when God is pretty much just forming you, for what could be next. And so good for us that we didn't have a lot of debt. So that's that was saved me a lot, because there's no way I could be a musician and be in that transition if I have a lot of debt at home. So, but it's not easy, but it's very gratifying.
Yeah, it's sort of gratifying. It's tough because God's created us to, make what we touch grow, multiply. I mean, you see it, from, creation of Adam and Eve onward. I mean, and so, when you are putting your hands to something and working hard, but it's not multiplying, it's not growing, every human being has that desire, and it's a God-given, but it's kind of our relationship with that desire that kind of determines our contentment and our peace and all of that. It's how big of a spot, how much real estate is that taking up in our mind and our heart to grow what we're doing, opposed to just kind of focus on the Lord. So I think one of the challenges, and even still today, I think, is just, keeping our walk with the Lord at the center of everything, and not become God's employees, but rather just his children.
And ultimately, that's what that Philippians 4:13 is about. Paul's talking about being content either in plenty or in want. I can do all things. I can be content in whether I have it all or whether I have nothing. I've learned to be content in it. But
That's awesome. So one of our good family friends, I think he's about her age here. He's Unspoken is his favorite band. You know, he has
Makes
good
sense.
taste.
Yeah.
Good kid. So I got the forced phone a friend question here. Unsolicited, I should say, phone a friend. He wants to know, what are your favorite songs? You know, I'd say both from your guys' catalog, you know, kind of what song speaks to you guys the most, that, you know, has kind of meant the most from you guys, and, you know, I'll open it up for, you know, anything else. Like, what song is your other, you know, outside of your guys' catalog, what's your guys' favorite songs?
I think, you know, songs are like Bible verses in regards to, you know, your favorites change kind of based on what you're going through and, you know, how those things are relating to you. But I would say that on our new record, maybe song, they're all my favorite, honestly, but I would say I really like For Kane Country's new song, God Only Knows.
That's a great one.
I really like Lauren Daigle's new song, Rescue. Those are two. Our songs, I mean, I really like a lot of them. So that's good.
It's good to like what you put out,
Yeah.
you know?
Anyone else?
I think one of my favorites on our new record is a song called Let It Be Love. It just kind of speaks to me. Being someone who kind of grew up very religious, I was good at being good, and then realizing the truth of the gospel, that it doesn't matter how good you are. It's his goodness, and that's what's attractive about the gospel. Not a bunch of rules and regulations, but the fact that, you know, if we're going to be known for something, let it be love. The love that we've been shown, let's show it. As far as other songs, I love anything by Need to Breathe. They're pretty awesome.
That's a good choice.
I'll say from our album, You Always Been, it's now these days. That's the song that I'm going to often, and anything from the '80s, man.
80s, amazing.
I'm in the '80s. Yeah, I like the '80s music.
So the thing that we haven't gotten to yet is we are actually here at a water park. You guys are performing for a concert series at a water park. So, you know, what do you guys do for fun? Like, I mean, we have obviously all the water slides, the pool, all that kind of stuff. So when you are home and your wives actually do like you because you are home, as you said earlier, what do you guys do for fun?
You know, I got 3 wonderful kids, and so we just go out and do family stuff. This summer it's been a lot of hanging by the pool and enjoying summertime. They've been out with us a bunch on the road as well, traveling all over the U.S. And so, you know, that's kind of my whole life at this point. If I could, I like playing basketball. So I was in a league for the first time in a long time this past spring, so that was kind of fun.
Awesome.
We live right by a river, so we like to get out in our canoe and canoe the rivers and go hiking, outdoorsy stuff. But my kids are still pretty young, so probably just going to the pool and watching Disney movies is their favorite thing.
Cooking, eating, and enjoying family, man. That's when I'm on the road, that's all I want to be. I want to be just chilling at home.
So John just got called out. Thanks, John.
Yep.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thanks for nothing.
So we got abandoned by one already.
It's all right, I got 2 mics now. Yeah.
Yeah, stereo.
Yeah, so we've got it. We haven't heard from our special guest here.
Come on over here. I want to ask you a question. Have you ever stolen anything or lied? I'm just kidding. Yes, you have. Now, the question is, how fun was making that Reason video?
It was really fun, but it was really tiring as well.
Why was it tiring?
Because I had to work for like 8 days from like 8 to 12 hours.
Yeah. So if anyone who doesn't know,
In like one of the parts when I was in the garage, I literally sat there for like 2 hours while they were fixing the lights. So.
yeah, a lot goes in. If anyone hasn't checked out our music video for a Reason, it's pretty neat. I don't think you've seen another Christian music video like it for sure. And so Romy was the star, and we were out a lot of days, and each day would be 12 hours and 8 or 12 hours, and then you'd get 30 seconds worth of footage. That would be what it would be edited down to. And so Romy just did a really fantastic job, made the video fun, and you should go check it out.
So we were talking about it earlier. What's your favorite song, Romy?
I agree with John. Let It Be Love is one of my dad's favorite songs. Well, one of my favorite songs of my dad's.
So from anybody other than your dad, what's your favorite song?
I don't know.
What's that Taylor Swift song you like?
Oh, Look What You Made Me Do.
Yeah.
Or, but I do like Gold.
I'm blue and dad bum dee bum dad and
It's
dad
my
um
favorite
dee
song,
bum dad.
Blue. Songs like I'm blue, da ba dee da ba da. It's about a guy
Oh, my
named
goodness.
Blue. That's my favorite song.
Oh, that's tough. That's tough. I thought we were going to be friends here.
Friends with everybody but the devil.
There you go.
I love it.
Wisdom right there.
So we got the deluxe edition coming out here before too long. One thing that I also saw is you filmed a bunch of videos for all the stories behind the songs. So that's on your YouTube channel. So we need to remember that. And if you haven't bought the album or listened to the album, that needs to happen immediately.
I think the songs are special. I mean, I really do. I think this is a special record, and it's going to be a special season for us. It's been a lot of growth over the last few years and a lot of changes as well. And, it just seems like, God won't back down with trying to get our attention and trying to pull us close to him, try to get our, reliance and all of these things, lessons that we learn over and over and over again. But so we're excited to see how well our song is doing on the radio, which is fun. And then to see some of these other songs and see those connecting as well. I mean, that's the crappy thing about the times we live in right now is that, people are streaming one song. And so you've got 12 songs that you poured your heart out to, and think about back in the day when we used to pick up a record, we bought it for the hit, but then our favorite songs were these other deep ones on the track, deep tracks on the record. And so, that's why I think we encourage people to buy it, is because then they'll have all the songs. Of course, Apple Music now does that as well, and I guess Spotify does too. So just listen to it all, though. I think that's important.
So one of the things that I love doing here, kind of at the tail end of the episode here, is to just hear from you guys. Just kind of give you guys an open mic. Just what's on your heart right now. I know it's putting you on the spot, and I'm okay with that. But what's on your heart? What's weighing heavy on you guys right now? Romy, you can even start.
I feel bad for Munoz because his dad has cancer and he's about to die.
Wow, it did get heavy.
You went that way, so yeah.
Dad, your turn.
That's obviously weighing heavy on us. I mean, we consider ourselves like, not only friends, but Ariel's just as much of an uncle as, if not more than my own brothers, because I never see my brothers, and he sees the kids and stuff all the time. So it's good to have support and stuff. But we've gone through so much. It seems like one punch in the gut after another over the last couple of years, whether it's in our business or our personal lives. And so, we've been dealing with anxiety in our home, like pretty severely, and over the last 6-8 months, it's gotten a lot better, which is such a relief, and we're so grateful. But it was a rough couple years, and so kind of trying to live with this new normal of peace, and is kind of neat and weird at the same time. Yeah, I mean, that's some of the stuff that we're doing. Honestly, for the first time in a bunch of years, like, I feel real peaceful, real easy, good. There's not I was going to say something interesting. There's not a storm just, hanging over our heads with some thing, so, I guess that's the Lord. I guess it's God's kindness that, all the stuff with Ariel's dad wasn't happening when all my stuff was going on too, because, probably needed each other, each other's support here. But
awesome. Is there anything else that you want to add?
No, she summed it up. Yeah, man. It's just it's a closure that the album bring into our lives, which is we can pick and choose the time that we are right now in our life, and get that. Say, well, he sucks right now, but something good must come out of this, and we're just asking God for peace.
Mm-hmm. We'll definitely be praying for you guys for the album, for the new deluxe, and then for your dad, and then
Thank you.
The peace for and learning the new piece that this new season here. So I very much appreciate you guys taking the time here, and hope that you guys hit a good slide or two after the show here.
I forgot
Romy
my
and I
Speedos,
we're already bouncing here earlier today, but the lines were kind of long, and I was like, let's go to the hotel pool.
We hit
No
the
one's
torpedo,
there.
Though. We got the torpedo. We got that orange and blue one that goes like straight down.
It's pretty fun. But it's been fun, and, I've never played to a literal sea of fans in a wave pool. I don't know how excited I am about it, but one of the things I do think is really neat about where we are in our music at this point is that people actually come to see us play and us share our stories and share our songs. And so, a lot of musicians play as kind of background music while other things are going on. And so, which we have had to do many times. But I think makes what we do even more special, that God would give us the opportunity, the platform to really speak into people who want to hear. It's a beautiful way to share what he's done in our lives, and empower and encourage, and just be a light and a reminder that wherever people are, the Lord's with them. He loves them, and he's on our side.
That's awesome. Well, I, for one, am very excited to see this here. So I'd say we just got the notion. So let's
get the heck
do it.
out of here.
Let's do it.
Mic drop.